Today on the Roundhouse, we're taking a trip up to the Keystone State and learning about the North Shore Railroad. All aboard!
In days past, the roundhouse was where the railroad worker united with the steam locomotive, each to prepare for the journey ahead. Today, it's where we examine the history, the industry, the machines, the hobby, and the passion behind railroading. News, interviews, stories, and more. So climb aboard. This is The Roundhouse.
Welcome to the Roundhouse. I'm your host, Nick Ozarek, and this is episode number 149 of our Trains and Railroading podcast, where we're talking about everything in the industry and the hobby. You name it, and we discuss it. The Roundhouse podcast is a Streamliner Media presentation. If your freight railroad, tourist railroad, museum has video needs, I'd love to work with you, and you can see my work at streamlinermedia.com. Today, we are talking to Mrs. Loni Martz Briner. She's the PR and media manager for the North Shore Railroad, which is a short line railroad / family of short line railroads in central Pennsylvania. She's going to talk about their business, their customers, and how they engage with their community. Before we get to that, though, I want to thank those of you who are supporting the Roundhouse podcast on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you're going to be supporting the work we do on the show. For $5 a month, you get early access to episodes like this one. Patreon.com/The Roundhouse. If you're already supporting me there, thank you very much. And I want to thank the Mechanical Services Department of the Strasburg Railroad for sponsoring this episode. Learn more at mechanical.strasburgrailroad.com. Our guest today is the PR and media manager for the North Shore Railroad. Please welcome to the Roundhouse, Mrs. Loni Martz Briner.
Good morning.
It's so great to have you on the show, Loni. Let's start with, if you could provide us an overview of what the North Shore Railroad comprises of.
Sure. So we have 6 short line freight railroads in central Pennsylvania, covering around 260 miles of track that we traverse. And we have about 70 employees who operate all the facets of our company, from the administration to maintenance of the track and maintenance of locomotives, car repair, all that stuff. We have an amazing workforce. We also expanded in recent years that our company's branched into railroad construction, and we purchased a railroad construction company out of Syracuse, New York, Tartaglia Railroad Services. So we're up there. We also have our company store nowadays, but our primary is the freight railroad here in PA with our 6 short lines.
What are the roots of the different companies that you have in PA?
Sure. I'm going to go in alphabetical order because that's how my brain works. So we have the Juniata Valley Railroad, which is based out of Lewistown, PA. It branches out to Maitland. It's all PA, Pennsylvania, it's all PA. So I'm just going to say town names, if that's okay. So Lewistown branching out to Maitland and Burnham, interchangeable with Norfolk Southern in Lewistown. Next is Lycoming Valley Railroad, which is based in Williamsport, PA. LVRR receives their interchanges in Northumberland from CP via Hollage in Norfolk Southern. And they service to Avis, Muncie, a lot in Williamsport. So there's a long stretch in there. And then the next in line would be the Nittany Bald Eagle Railroad, which interchanges with Norfolk Southern in both Tyrone and Lock Haven. And its home office is in Bellefonte. So it basically serves everything in between there. That's along the rail lines. And it also branches out to Pleasant Gap and State College. Go Penn State. Then we have North Shore Railroad, which is out of Northumberland. Here, our home office. We also have a car wash yard where 4 of our railroads interchanges are broken down. From Northumberland, North Shore goes all the way to Berwick and back down in Northumberland. Then we have the Shamokin Valley Railroad. Oh, I'm sorry. North Shore also added, I can't forget this one. It expanded in 2022 into Snyder County. So it has a second branch that is from it's Selinsgrove and Kramer and Shamokin Dam. Those are the areas for the Selinsgrove branch. Then the Shamokin Valley, which truthfully starts, the interchange in Northumberland, but it truthfully starts in Sunbury, and then it runs all the way to Mount Carmel, where it interchanges with the Red and Blue Mountain and Northern, and then it serves everything in between. And then the Union County Industrial Railroad also receives interchange in Northumberland, but then it trackage rights up to its starting point in Milton, Pennsylvania, and then that's where it serves New Columbia, where all this stuff's happening, out to Allenwood, and then all the way down south to Lewisburg. And then it heads back out to the Norfolk Southern Buffalo line.
What is the total mileage of that when added up?
It's like 260. It's almost 260.
Wow. And what are some of the different commodities that you transport for your customers?
It's all over the place. So Pennsylvania has a very robust manufacturing system, and we've got anything from grains to steel, finished, unfinished, railroad ties, rail car parts. I like to, when I present to kids in school, I like to try to orient them like, you like Funyuns, right? Well, Funyuns are made from products hauled by rail. When you were a baby, you wore diapers. Products that, paper products that go into making diapers came in by rail. We handle a lot of stuff.
You're turning 40 years old, not you personally, the railroad is turning 40 years old in 2024 when we're recording this. What led to the formation of the North Shore Railroad 40 years ago?
All right. So I don't like history, but I know this one pretty well. In 1983, Conrail was getting ready to abandon a couple railroads. We now know them today as North Shore Railroad and Nittany and Bald Eagle Railroad. Those were our first railroads. In 83, they were getting abandoned, and CETA, Council of Governments, it's a local, a central Pennsylvania municipality group. They added a branch of volunteers to serve on a board, which we now know as the Joint Rail Authority. The Rail Authority volunteers are appointed by county commissioners, and the Joint Rail Authority was like the vessel to save the rail from being abandoned by Conrail. And they were looking for qualified operators, and that's where our company's founder, Richard Roby, was actually selected as their operator back in we started in 84, and then we've grown throughout the years. So we have 84 is where North Shore and Nittany started, and then in 88, another rail line was saved that we know as our Shamokin Valley Railroad. We also have our Lycoming Valley Railroad and our Juniata Valley Railroad, which are from 1996 is when Richard was actually approached about purchasing them, and he offered them to the CETA Joint Rail Authority to keep everything working the way it was with the other ones. And then our Union County was added in 95 now. Union County is a little more complex because it's not just CETA. It's actually owned by 3 separate companies. 2 are private, and then CETA has a little branch at the end. So it's a little more complex on that railroad. But all in all, we don't own our infrastructure. We operate, market, maintain, and do all the hard stuff.
So what are the factors that you believe led to this expansion being successful? Because anytime you're taking on more responsibility, there's a lot that comes with that. You allude to the infrastructure as an example of that. So how has each decision been guided in terms of ensuring that when this expansion is going on, that it's something that's within your capabilities and being able to take on that additional responsibility?
So I'll say that we've got some really great minds here. Even, going back to Richard Roby, I mean, he's a brilliant guy. So, he knew what was important, and that's where we kept everything in perspective. And today, as a company, like, seeing our expansion into a company in Syracuse, that was not something we took lightly. And it was something that we had a whole team of people working on, like, is this something that, are there values to it that mesh well with our company, with our customers? Is it something that's going to benefit everybody as a whole, including the crew up there in New York? So, every time we take on anything else, even we do an unloading service for a customer who's not served by us, another rail served customer in Central PA. There was again, another whole team comes together and they say, is this something that's good for them and good for us? And, we don't take anything lightly, and we work together as a team very well.
You mentioned the formation of CEDACOG Joint Rail Authority, and that they are owners of a large portion of your infrastructure. How do you work with them today? What does that relationship look like?
Sure. So they're still a volunteer-based board, and they meet almost every month. I mean, every now and then they get to take a month off, but they're volunteers. I would want to take a month off every now and then too. So they meet monthly, and their job and their part is like capital projects and the everyday, like easements and property. Like they're like the landlord almost, and we're the tenant who's. It's almost like if it was a tenant who was running a small mom and pop shop. That's us running that. But they work on projects with us, and we work with them, and their focus is preserving rail freight in Central PA. That is their mission, and we have aligned everything that we do with that. So it's actually made it easy for us to keep our vision in mind, where we keep safety, employees, communities top of our focus, but all of that comes under the umbrella of we're here to preserve and keep this a competitive market for the customers of Central PA.
Who are some of the clients that you serve that people even from outside of the area might have some familiarity with?
So I don't like talking about our customer names because there are competitor railroads around us. But I mean, it's no lie that we serve. So I'll stick with some railroad part producers. So Koppers is they do railroad ties, and they treat them and they prepare them for railroads. And so like there's railroads all across the United States, and the ties that they're running on were, treated and prepared here in PA. Down in Lewistown, there's Standard Steel makes Standard Steel and Greenbrier Rail. They work together to make wheels and axles for rail cars. So rail cars that are traveling all over the place, their components come out of Lewistown, PA. Actually, we had our previous director of operations. He's retired at this point. He was on an Alaskan cruise with his wife. And while he was in Alaska, on the Alaskan Railroad, he passed by one of our rail cars, one of our shipments of wheels up to Alaska. So, it's really cool to think about even just the rail industry, the way, our little railroads can impact all these other ones. Actually, and it's international. It's not just within the US.
No, that's very neat to have that connection. And a key element of your business is transloading. Has that been something that's really helped both you and the customers who use that?
Sure. So we have, what comes to my mind right away is when you talk about transloading is I think about Williamsport, Pennsylvania, where we have a lot of business. That's a really active hub. There are a number of transloaders just in that area that are taking the bulk off of the rail car and to the customers that aren't right on the rail lines. So, I mean, we don't really do a lot of transload personally, our company ourselves, but we partner with a lot of really great companies that are local here in PA that they get to do the transloading. It's important to have transloading because there are so many businesses that can't be right up on the rail line. So to have so many good partners that are able to be that in between for them, it's really important.
One of your latest projects centers around Country View Family Farms. What is the scope of that?
So they're building some really tall buildings. They're putting in a loop track. They're going to be handling some unit trains, some regular manifest traffic. Um, it's really the sky's the limit with that team there. They've got a lot of local connections here that are eager to work with them. So, we'll see how big they get when everything's up and running here in the next year or two.
I imagine that must be exciting to have something, any of these sort of cornerstone customers where there's such an investment in what they are building that you know that they're going to be around for a while and they're going to be a strong source of traffic.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll take it a step further and across the street from where Country View is building is a roofing manufacturer, GAF, and they're one of our newest customers. They just came here a few years ago, and they up and just dove all in investing in this area, and they have such great. A lot of our customers, their rates for employees, the pay, it's so competitive, and so it's very attractive. These are rail served customers. But GAF, I mean, not only did they just locate here, they've already expanded and they're looking into expanding again. And I mean, they're putting their money there too. So they've actually put out, publicized that the reason they keep expanding in New Columbia is because of what service they're getting from the Union County Railroad, which is one of our railroads. So lets us know that we're doing things right, when they come out and say stuff like that.
Earlier, you mentioned this element of all this infrastructure, some of it dating back over 100 years. What are some of the challenges faced with maintaining that?
I mean, you're constantly having to evaluate what needs upgraded next. And that's not just us, it's railroads across the US, period. Just rail lines can't, and no infrastructure can last forever. I mean, we've been very fortunate that as many railroads have been able to stay in such good tact all this time with the beating they get with rail cars. But you just have to evaluate, what's got the longest life on it and what needs upgraded or replaced next. So that's a ever evolving question and battle. I mean, that's something all railroads are working on.
Something that helped me to learn a lot about your company and what you have going on is your newsletter. I love that you have such a detailed newsletter. And as a communications person, from one to another, it's great to see that. Why do you find it important for the work that you do?
I'm just bored at work. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, our newsletters, like for me, when I'm building it, this is my opportunity once a quarter to feature what our employees are doing and what our customers are doing. So I'm not supposed to use the word brag, but I feel like that's my time that I get to brag them up. So the newsletter, it's also a great time for people to be able to kind of get to the heart of our CEO. Our first letters are featured from our president. And I mean, I hope he doesn't listen to this because don't tell him, but he's a very wise person. And there's a lot of great stuff to glean from him. So it's like that once a quarter where he gets to kind of impart his wisdom on everybody. And we take his article, actually, when people are responding, his article is always like the number one. Oh, I loved what he said. And marketing has always got stuff cooking. So we try to find that balance where we're not giving too much away, but when we're allowed to give stuff away and that we're allowed to announce it, they're always excited to have the platform of On Track, our newsletter, to put that out there. And talking about the stuff we do in the community, which is probably what you're going to ask about next, our opportunities to reach our communities. My perspective, my goal with community engagement has been railroad safety, because it is amazing how many times I get out there and these people just don't realize it. Like if I'm at an event, oh yeah, we took pictures on the railroad tracks. Like, you what? No, we don't do this. And, I'm always pushing Operation Lifesaver messages out to everybody. So to be able to engage with the community and kind of keep close bonds, we have gotten relationships built through On Track and our social media, where I have seen members of the rail fan community out there, protecting our greater interests. We get actually just last month, a rail fan messaged us and said, they knew that they would get to us right away. So they messaged immediately and said, there's guys on your bridge right now. And she was waiting for the train to come through. So to be able to have that kind of relationship with the rail fans in our communities, like, it's just a huge safety improvement. I feel like in a lot of places where the rail fans are out there also educating others on rail safety, but we're able to educate, going to preschools, doing school assemblies, going to touch a truck events. That's where we can connect to people. And our latest push has been, we have these sign-up sheets, and the kids at these events, they make a pledge and they sign the sheet saying they're going to stay off of railroad tracks. And I have books of these pages, and like, when I die, that's probably going to be my legacy, or all these signatures we got. So that's important.
The Strasburg Railroad is an institution in the heritage railroad industry, and its mechanical services department is proud to lead the way. With the knowledge and experience that has created one of the most reliable steam railroading experiences in the country, the Strasburg Railroad is excited to offer their expertise to the rest of the industry. Strasburg's professional team provides consulting and technical assistance to take your steam locomotive or rail car project from idea to finished product. They stand behind their work and always strive to meet their customers' needs for quality, historic accuracy, and reliability at a price that is fair. Unlike many competitors, they feature a fully equipped boiler, rail car, and machine shop, so the work gets done in-house, helping you get more for your money. Send your inquiries to mechanical@strasburgrailroad.com and let the professionals get to work for you. For a company as small as yours, you say 77 employees total, with the size of network you have, you can't be everywhere all at once. And it would seem that having this relationship with the communities where you're incentivizing people to appreciate railroading in all these different ways, so that then you have them as an ally and they see you as an ally in return.
Yeah, and to take it a step further, there's also like different chambers and industrial development groups, and like BHRS, and the Bellefonte Intervalley Chamber, and that out there. Like, no, I can't be out in Bellefonte, but I do know we have allies out there who, if they saw a group of kids running up and down train tracks, they wouldn't let that fly. And so, like, we do have good relationships with those people, but also in return for business. So if they would come across somebody who was potentially looking for a rail site, they're going to call us. So, it is important to keep those relationships and have good relationships. Like you said, we can't be everywhere all at once. That's 11 counties. So that's tough to try to be everywhere.
I want to turn the spotlight onto you specifically, Loni. How did you get into this line of work?
So I was straight out of college, working third shift at a convenience store, and a woman came in and said, I just quit my job. And we were like, why? She goes, because I knew if I never quit, I would never look for another thing. So I was like, whoa. I did the same thing then that night. And then that weekend, I picked up a newspaper, and there was an ad for a customer service representative. It just had a phone number and like what the role was, nothing else. I was like, that's weird. So I called the number and came in and filled out the application. And when I was here, I was like, so why didn't you like tell anybody like what your office was in your advertisement? And they said, well, we get a lot of like fans who they just end up calling saying, can I get a ride on the train? Like, if I come and take this job, can I ride trains? And so they advertised it kind of secretively, but I got the job, and that was almost 16 years ago. and I've just kind of molded myself into what I do today. I didn't get hired into PR, um, just kind of where I landed.
And from reading your newsletter that you so carefully put together, I could see all these employees that are having certain work anniversaries and so forth. It seems like yours is a company which really wants people to stick around for the long haul and is willing to commit resources and to invest in those employees.
Yeah, and we don't talk about this stuff a lot, but what they do here, because no one's here to tell me to stop talking. What they do here with the employee relations is like when they make a decision, the employee consideration comes first. So there are a lot of stuff that we do too as a company. They pay for 100% of employees' healthcare benefits for them and their families, dental, vision, all of it. The company pays 100%. That's like a rarity nowadays, but it's always been done. So it's how they continue to do it. Um, there's a group that meets on Saturdays, so that's not interrupting with service as much. It's the employee suggestion group where you have people from all the different departments and facets of the company, and they all come together and they present different suggestions. They kind of represent the employees. They also work together to solve problems. So like if one employee had a question, sometimes somebody in the room be like, oh, this is why we do this. And so it's a collective group of, and it's like they're leaders. They don't realize it, but they're leaders in this company, in that group. We started doing these things called employee appreciation days on a monthly basis. And it's kind of like just a surprise. Like this month, it was actually this week, everybody got to work and it's like, surprise, here's a baseball cap. And by the time you air this, you'll know that we rolled out railroad trading cards and some Cracker Jacks. So it was like a baseball theme, like employees appreciation thing. So, it's just little stuff like that. Our managers and stuff have gift cards on hand whenever they see something amazing, or like if an employee catches something that you wouldn't otherwise see, but it's like, wow, they went above and beyond and they saw this and we were able to stop something catastrophic from happening. They get gift cards for that. So again, this isn't something that we really talk about, but people here care about the employees. I know that's not always how people feel when they're at work, but I hope all of our employees know how valued they are when they come here.
In one of the newsletters I read, it was acknowledging on the cover that, hey, what you do isn't always glamorous, but it is always important. And I think it's great to be able to kind of level like that, because us fans will idolize anything to do with railroads, but those in the railroad industry know it's not always as fun as it looks from the outside. And so being able to talk to your employees like real people and recognizing the nuance of what they do is important.
No, like I said, we have a great group of people here, and that's when I'm doing the newsletter. And even the last school assembly that I presented at earlier this year, it was like, they were like, why, what makes your job fun? And I'm like, what makes my job fun is I get to just sit and talk about what these people do and what they're good at what they do. And there were a couple of slides and they're like, wow, what's all that? And it was like the inside of a locomotive. I'm like, they're amazing. Not me. They're amazing. They're good at this. I'm not. They are.
It's outreach like that and the communications that you have and the existence of your own role that suggests that you are a growth-minded company, that yours is a mentality of not just, here we are, here's our customers, here's what we do, but here's what we'd like to do. Here's how we'd like to grow.
Yeah. And, so Todd Hunter, our director of marketing, we call him Toddisms. He always has analogies for pretty much everything. And one of the Toddisms that I think about a lot is when it comes to marketing in general, especially marketing around, is marketing is a funnel. That is what the job of somebody in marketing does. You have to keep feeding, because it doesn't matter how good you are at your job, there's always going to be something coming out the bottom. That's just how economy works. So you've got to always be filling in the funnel. And if you're doing marketing well, you're going to be filling in the funnel faster than it's coming out the bottom. And so we don't want to be a mega railroad. We're not trying to be a huge regional competitor. We're here for the same mission that the JRA is here for. We're here for the customers and preserving freight railroad here in central Pennsylvania.
One of the forms of partnership that you're involved with is offering passenger excursions. Sometimes you do them for special events. Sometimes they're in conjunction with the Bellefonte Railway Historical Society. In fact, just last year, 2023, they were able to get their RDC up and running and use it on the Nittany and Bald Eagle. Why is that important?
We really do see there's a lot of nonprofits in our region that do really great things. And so you look at the BHRS, they're no nonsense. Like they're good at what they do, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get their mission accomplished. And they're amazing. So for us to be able to partner with them that's fun for us. They're doing all the hard work, really. I mean, you look at what they're putting into that RDC, it's an honor for us to be able to partner with them. So I'm excited because I also see their RDCs. Their second one's also in the works, and they're making really good progress there. So I look forward to seeing that group continue to grow. And they're, again, another one that's going to bring awareness of rail freight and railroads and rail safety. Like they're an advocate that you want to have in your corner and work with. So that's why we definitely keep partnering with them.
Let's turn to this railroad construction arm that you've just gotten into up in Syracuse, Tartaglia. What led to the decision to get into this whole other type of business?
We weren't even looking. There was a group that came to us. They were aware that it was actually for a number of years. I want to say 5 to 10 years. The previous owner had been looking for a buyer, and they had turned away some really large offers, but it was important to the seller that it was a family business, whatever business they were selling to had to have the same values and the same mentality that they had. And again, we were not looking, but somebody was like, hey, you haven't found somebody. Have you considered these guys? And then they were coming to us saying, hey, they're looking for somebody. You would be a good fit. And there was a courtship there. And then it was like, yeah, this could be really good. Our customers could use this Tartaglia when there's not somebody else, who's available for construction. And like, there's just a lot of synergies between what we do and what they do. And, to top it off, they've added at Tartaglia, they have a high rail shop. So they've got this decked out shop where they have large equipment come in and they upfit it with the high rail gear. And they do it for big railroads, little railroads. I mean, they can do pickup trucks and that too, but like basically you say, hey, I want to put high rail gear on this. They can do it. So they have a fun little niche there that you don't find everywhere. So again, that's something that sometimes we need to put high rail gear on. Doesn't this make sense to have this a part of us? Yeah, I think they decided it was.
When you look at all the work, Loni, that you are accomplishing and that your company is accomplishing, what gives you the greatest feeling of success?
I mean, I have different moments. So, and I don't want to sound cliche, but when there's moments like our company has a Knoebels picnic in the summer, when you look at, 300 people there, they're people with their parents and their kids. And, they're the reason we, fight to be here every day, and we do everything we can to make sure that this business works and that it's doing the best thing for everyone. And then in my head, I go from, this is just ours. We've got 100 customers and they've got their own, Knoebels pavilion that they're looking after. So keeping our rail competitive for them and making sure that their businesses are viable and thriving as much as we can. That's what, knowing that I'm able to help make that happen and keep these people here, that's right now, that's where my brain is. So I know it's a little cliche, but just looking at the faces and, sometimes if I'm having a rough day, or if anyone else in the immediate office that I work with has a rough day, I can kind of center it with, hey, I want you to think about so and so and his kids that you were, just seeing at this event. And it's people. It's people and their livelihoods. And we have an opportunity to do something to make them amazing. So that's what we're going to try to do.
Their website is nshr.com. You can learn more about the specific properties as well as read some of these newsletters. Loni, thank you so much for joining us here on the Roundhouse to talk about this really neat company. Congratulations once again on achieving 40 years of service, and look forward to seeing what comes in the future for you guys.
Thank you so much.
And now, the question of the day.
All right, guys, we are fast approaching episode 150. That's going to be next month in November of 2024, and the 10-year anniversary of the Roundhouse. I asked you guys how we should celebrate. Here's a few suggestions. From Kenny Broomfield, check in / update on some of your previous guests and what they have done since their first interview. Ruby Halbmeyer writes, record the Roundhouse podcast in an actual roundhouse. And Mark Rayum writes, I think someone should interview you, Nick. Get an inside scoop on what goes into making the podcast, what you've learned, and reflect on the journey so far. These are all great suggestions and just a handful that I picked out, so you've given me some good ideas. Next month's episode is probably going to be a traditional episode because I'm not prepared to do two celebrations so close to one another. So we'll see what adventure we have in store for 150, but February is when we'll do whatever we're going to do. Your question of the day for this episode is, what railroad do you know of or work for that is good with connecting to its local communities? Let me know on the roundhousepodcast.com. Links to social media are there, as well as all previous episodes of the show. And we're coming up on 150 episodes. If you're new to this, you have plenty of good entertainment and education in store for you. Thank you so much for those of you who have been along for the ride. I'm looking forward to celebrating this journey with you very soon. Remember, as always, that the Roundhouse is our house.